For their part, the Hasmonaean did not offer official support for the Zealots. Doing so would have been a death sentence. But in secret, Mary's brother, Joseph, an up-and-coming tin merchant, sent money to Judah and his allies. Another ally existed within the royal court, a man closely related to the king himself, his older brother, Joseph. For the sake of clarity, I'll call Herod's brother, Joseph of Idumea, to distinguish him from Mary's brother, who would later be known as Joseph of Arimathea, Idumea being where Herod's paternal side came from, what is now the modern kingdom of Jordan. Joseph of Idumea was a talented scholar and artisan. He designed several of his brother's building projects, as well as debated him in matters of religion. The older son of Antipater was a committed essay, having been persuaded to join the movement in his younger years by Menahem himself during one of the famed Rabbi S. trips to Jerusalem to visit his family. Despite this commitment to the Essene philosophy, the prince also agreed with Judah that violence was the only way to rid Judea of Roman influence. What contradictions he faced, Joseph of Idumea pushed them aside and funded the Zealots for years. Then, in 14 BC, he actively joined them in one of their most riskiest missions up until this time. Judah planned on going into Jerusalem at night, killing the temple guards and sneaking up onto the roof to remove the sacrilegious eagle. Joseph of Idumea, as a prince, aided in this by taking over temple guard duties for the night and allowing the guards, members of his brother's Germanic regiment, to be killed by the Zealots. The raid on the temple succeeded, Judah hurling the eagle off the roof and escaping back into the countryside without any loss of life on his side. Prince Joseph evaded suspicion, though faced a harsh reception at court, as his brother belittled him for failing to protect the temple. For the next 9 years, Joseph of Idumea continued to actively help the Zealots with information and money. His relationship with Herod, while not particularly close, wasn't cold or hostile, so he was able to maintain his court rank. In 05 BC, Herod was summoned to Rome for a year by Emperor Augustus, and before he left, put his brother Joseph in charge of guarding his wife. Herod, having recently murdered Aristobulus, due to believing he was creating plans to overthrow him. The boy was only 14, did not trust that Mary would remain faithful while he was gone. He also feared, due to her grief over their son's death, she would try to have him assassinated. He tasked Joseph with making sure such a thing never happened. Setting off to Italy, Herod could never have dreamed of what would happen once he left. Joseph and Mary, long drawn to each other, though never acting on it, soon became lovers, and the prince let Mary in on his secret alliance with Judah the Galilee. Judah, capitalizing on a newfound ally in the queen, came to the palace under the cover of night, where Mary, Joseph of Idumea, and Mary's eldest son Alexander met him. All four conspired together to assassinate the king and place Alexander on the throne, restoring the Hasmonaean to power. However, somehow this plan reached the ears of Simon, who was now high priest. Having been installed by Herod after his marriage to Mary, unwilling to let his daughter threaten all he had worked for, Simon sent a letter to Herod warning him off the plot, implicating Mary, his brother, and Alexander in it, all working for Judah of Galilee, he said. Herod, like one can imagine, was furious and hurt when he learned of this treason. He left Rome immediately and rode hard for Judea. Once back in the kingdom, he ordered the execution of everyone involved with the plot. Mary, heavily pregnant by Joseph by this time, was in the palace when she heard about her sentence, and knowing she could not escape through the doors, jumped out of a window down onto the streets below. Luckily, she sustained no injuries, and was able to flee Jerusalem along with Joseph of Idumea. Horrifically, Alexander, not in the city at the time, and thus not learning of the execution orders as soon as Mary did, was apprehended by his father's men and brought before him. Herod did not show any mercy to his eldest, having him beheaded before his eyes. For good measure, the king also ordered Alexandra to be confined to her quarters, and eventually beheaded her too. As for Simon, Herod didn't trust him either, and promptly stripped him of the high priestly position and exiled him. He died some time later. Whereabouts unknown. Mary and Joseph of Idumea made it to safety, finding shelter in the Essene community of Bethlehem, where they were able to hide in the stables. It was here that the soon-to-be parents were visited for the first time by the archangel Gabriel. While they were resting, a bright light appeared before them. Stepping out of it was Gabriel. The archangel announced to the two that they would be parents to a son who would, in time, become a prophet of God and lead Israel to the right path. He then vanished. The angel would appear a few more times separately to Joseph and Mary, assuring them they would be safe and that their son was chosen by God. On the last appearance of Gabriel to Joseph of Idumea, the archangel warned of Herod's plan. The king found out about Mary's pregnancy and feared that their child, having both Hasmonaean and Herodian blood, would be held up as the rightful king of Judea, and so ordered the slaughter of all newborn boys in the kingdom to prevent this. Mary gave birth a few hours later, and as Gabriel said they had a son. They named him Yeshua, or as we better know him today, Jesus, which is a Greek translation of his original Hebrew name. As Jesus is the most widely known of his names, I will use it for the sake of convenience. Soon after Jesus' birth, 3 men, religious sages, guided to Bethlehem by Gabriel in the form of a star, came to the stables to recognize the newborn prophet. Balthazar, an Egyptian, and the other 2, an Indian named Melchior and a Greek named Gaspar, were all prophets of God who had come to announce Jesus' status as a prophet. Once Mary was healed enough to travel, Balthazar and the others, known today as the 3 wise men, escorted her and Joseph to Egypt, where they would be safe from Herod's massacre. A day or so later, this massacre began. Thousands of newborns died by his order, forever staining his name in the eyes of the Judean people. The family of Jesus lived in Egypt for 2 months before Herod died on April 1st. 04 BC, the king, coming down with a severely painful illness which caused his skin to decay, committed suicide by stabbing himself. After his death, the kingdom was divided between his 3 surviving sons. From his different wives, the man had several. Mary and Joseph returned to Judea soon after Herod's death and settled in Nazareth, a small Essene community where they could live in peace undisturbed. Together, besides Jesus, Mary and Joseph of Idumea would have several more children. James, born in 03 BC, John, born in 01 BC, Simon, born 02 AD, Judah, born 04 AD, Salome, born 06 AD, Mary, born in 07 AD. In time his siblings and his mother would become followers of Jesus, and his brothers were among his closest friends and disciples. Joseph, from a previous marriage, also had 2 daughters, Asha and Lydia, who he was able to send out of Jerusalem in time, and they later joined him and Mary in Nazareth. And just like Jesus' full siblings, his half-sisters would join his movement. As for Mary's daughters with Herod, he married them off to his nobles, and they didn't have contact with her again, as far as I could determine. Despite the need to hide from the government, Joseph of Idumea was able to provide for his family while doing carpentry work, and Mary's brother, Joseph of Arimathea, also made many visits to Nazareth, where he gave them money and support, so that Jesus and his brothers and sisters grew up comfortably.